introduce ourselves first. I'm Talia. I'm the co-artistic director of Phantom Chorus Theater.
I'm Mark. I'm also the co-artistic director of Phantom Chorus Theater.
I'm Rhiannon. I'm one of the core members of Phantom Chorus Theater.
I'm Aaron. Same.
Josh. Same.
Christina. Same.
One of them is not a core member. At the end, if you guess right, you get their spot.
This is really an audition.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we basically what we do is we do all original work, which is a new theater conference, you know. So yeah, we love making things that we haven't seen before, and we like to use the mediums of puppetry, movement, and music. You know, things that involve the senses, visuals, sounds, Foley. You know, yeah. So that's our vibe.
We haven't gotten to touch yet, but we'll get there.
That's today.
Taste and smell are always there. You just gotta be brave. All right, so it's my turn to talk. So today, for our presentation / activity, we're going to be doing, it's basically in like two phases. We're going to be doing some show and tell, talk about puppetry in terms of how we use it, but also specifically whatever. You know, we're going to talk about a bunch of our puppets, how we use them, etc., etc., and then we're going to be doing some hands-on stuff. So you are going to get all to play with the puppets. What else am I talking about?
What type of puppetry are we talking about?
Oh yeah. Today we're talking about articulated puppetry. So articulated puppetry in the broadest sense is puppets that have joints, puppets that have, I guess you can think about it like a marionette with no strings, right? It's not always that complicated, but it is always made up of like fixed joints that have certain limited movement. It's not like a soft body puppet like Kermit the Frog or something, for example, right? But it is a pretty broad term, and like pretty much any definition in puppetry, there's a lot of like gray area. So we're going to explore a lot of that gray area today.
Yeah, so we'll look at our first kind of fully articulated puppet with Mr. Pumpkinhead here. How cute is he? So this is your classic style where you have the lead puppeteer, Rainy here, is controlling the head and one of the arms. Sometimes the lead will do the head with their dominant hand, but sometimes people prefer the other one, so it just depends.
I'm right-handed, so I prefer to do the head with my left.
And then, let's see, so the second puppeteer is Aaron.
Hello.
On the other arm and the body if needed, which looks like there's no body rod on this one, but sometimes there'll be a rod on the body to move the puppet, up, down.
Really depends on the needs of the show, right? How much the torso is needed.
Also, his body kind of is a rod.
Oh, yeah.
Now we've got the third puppeteer on the feet, Josh. Hey, Josh. So if you're the foot puppeteer, prepare for some quad burn.
Yeah. You're
And
usually
perhaps
quite low.
some knee pads would be enjoyable for you.
This is a classic puppet stance right here.
So yeah, we call this style like rod style or bunraku style from the traditional Japanese puppetry. And so yeah, let's see him come to life a little bit.
Do you want to talk about kind of the three phases that we talked about, from top to bottom?
So,
You know, like
breath movements.
breath.
And
Yeah.
movement.
So first thing
So,
we
yeah.
need to bring our little guy to life for everyone to get in sync is, yes, to get him to start breathing. So all three puppeteers being led by Rainy, followed by Aaron, followed by Josh. Take a moment to breathe together first. together, you can't necessarily tell who's leading, but the head should be kind of the leader, everyone else is following along. So once we have a nice breath and we're alive, maybe we can go on a stroll. The head's turning left, so our body, our feet follows. Play around with the little obstacle. Yep. With every puppet, there's a learning curve at first. You might move awkwardly, but you get more and more in sync, and then it's a real thing. It's just alive.
If you're on the head or the body, you want to make sure to hold it high. You get exhausted really easily and it starts to slump, and then that's not a natural position for a puppet to stand in. So it's something we're always reminding each other of in rehearsal.
When we're deciding who is on the head, you might, depending on the height they need to reach, that might come into play. So.
This table might have to be lower. Want to jump down again? 1, 2. Another thing to keep in mind is the line of sight of your puppet. If you kind of are back here not paying attention as a puppeteer, you can easily let the line of sight say something different than what your intention is. So it's easier when there's dialogue or a musical, some choreography or something, but right now we're just watching our audience, right? One of those aspects of keeping them alive and breathing. That's another thing we comment on with each other is if I'm just in a thought, you can see my puppet is also in a thought. He's not moving at all. He's not alive anymore. I got to remember to make him breathe and make him move. Even those little things that, like all of you are doing right now, your little just shifting in your seat and things, your puppet has to do that too. It doesn't look alive. So, yeah.
Keep them alive at all times. Another thing that's useful to know about puppetry is that every movement looks best when it's a little slower than real life. So I don't know, whereas if you're an actor, you might get told, bring up the pace, but with a puppet, we're usually going to be saying, slow it down, because it's fascinating to watch every little thing that's happening. If we came up with a little move that we did too quick and then we slowed it down.
It also, it reads better. We do a lot of adventuring in our shows, and you capture more of the story when you slow down big movements like jumping across chasms and things, because you just get more of the story because everyone is watching these little articulations quite a lot. It's feedback we've received, so we end up doing a lot of slow-mo because it's easier for us, but also I think storytelling is better for the audience.
Should we end with a little slow-mo run and then we'll go to our next
Sure,
puppet
yeah.
thing?
Should we jump over the table? Yeah.
Oh,
All right.
is he gonna make it?
Not practice this in advance.
Storage for
All right,
a while.
here we go.
All right, so now we're going to be moving on to Creech. Creech was in our show Victor Invictus. It was our first horror show here at the Horror Fest. As you can see, he is a little bit different. When we were creating the show, Mark and I were bouncing ideas off of each other, and he was like, I think I'm just going to get a skeleton and start building off of that. And I was like, what? And then he shows up with this box with a fully articulated scientific skeleton. Weighed 40 pounds. I'm like, how are you going to do this? But he starts taking it apart, adding some flesh onto it, and yeah. Why don't you take it, Mark? Show them what you're doing.
So, you can see that this is what we would call sort of on the more complicated end of an articulated puppet. It's a combination of, not only is it something that is almost a costume, right? The legs sort of meld in with the puppeteer as it gets down to, and to the point where actually my feet are the creature's feet, or Creech as we call him. But so he's got cool shoes on today.
This also is a 3-person puppet. However, as you can see, Mark has to utilize his other hand that he would normally be using to articulate the arm to actually articulate the mouth. There's a pull string in the back that operates the jaw.
Yeah, so it goes up through the head, and then it's like a little spring that keeps the mouth shut. This was also an example of sometimes you gotta work harder, not smarter, and a big part of building puppets is recycling or starting with a base. There's no shame in something that is a cool mechanic that already exists. We've all seen awesome YouTubers on TikTok and YouTubers and Facebook and whatever, Instagram, who are hand-making or 3D printing all these custom things. That's cool. You can buy an anatomy skeleton that has all these joints, and it's sturdy, and it's built together, and it's got steel, and it's got springs, and it's all got the limitations of a human body. And all the modifications you'll make it your own. Yeah, let's do some moves.
Yeah. So why don't we breathe it into life? Together, and then why don't we take a few steps forward?
And so, weight is something you usually need to impart on the puppet, right? So that's something that you never want it to actually be as heavy as you want them to be. The puppeteers need to be able to endure. Now, Creech is plenty heavy, but he's not nearly as heavy as he looks, or we want to make him look. What else? Maybe...
And this really is an example of trial and error as well, because he put this thing together and took it apart probably 5 times before he found out how he could actually get all the pieces to move the right way. So it's never a failure, it's an opportunity to learn, right?
Let's harvest some organs.
Yeah. In the show, he rips people's guts out for surgery. And so part of the trial and error was learning that even though we had these great skeletal legs, we needed to pivot to soft legs with cool noodle bones because we needed the mobility, the ability to not have. It's like, well, we've already got leg bones in here, so we can't have 2 sets of leg bones clapping together.
And he dropped about 20 pounds, so something we'd all love to do.
Yeah. Just remove your legs. Replace them with cool noodles.
That's it, that's the answer!
What else can we say about Creech?
The jaw is articulated because the character speaks, right?
Yes.
In the show.
So
that is, you were
yes.
actually doing.
So if I was doing the voice, or if keeping in the audience that I was doing the voice, it didn't sound like this.
His face rips off. Just
Oh yeah. I mean, technically any puppet's face rips off, but this one's meant to. Let's do it. With the puppet. Rips his own face off. Another benefit of having the skeleton already was that I didn't need to sculpt the skull just for this.
Yeah. Because it was about a 5-second bit, but it paid off. I will say one sort of puppetry 101 thing that this articulates really well is when you're speaking with a puppet, you want to make sure that this jaw, the lower jaw, is the one that's moving. Because otherwise the head...
Not the rest of the head.
Right, as you can see, this is built like a human. That's how it goes. Your skull doesn't. Like your business Spencer, right? I mean, you're good. All right, so I'm going to start getting out of Creech. I think we should move on.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say someone should talk really quick about the process of getting in and out of the puppet as well. And then just.
Sure, yeah. We have a couple of wearable puppets that we've created. Well, Mark's actually been the creator of them. But yeah, in a quick change, you're going to have 2 or 3 people to assist you because there's no way that you're going to get out of this thing on your own. As you can see, it's connected at multiple points in order to wear the harness. And
You can design it to do certain things, like this is supposed to slide on and off, but it also, like, the puppet's going to do what it's going to do, so you have to be gentle, don't force it. That's always important.
It's one of those like, how does it go? Like,
So, this is my adage I always say, is slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Yeah.
And it's super, double, triple important for puppetry in all aspects, top to bottom.
Yeah, because you might be making that change, backstage. You might have specific timing you're trying to hit, and you're getting puppeteers, getting out of it to puppet, but then getting right back on stage for your next cue or do something else. So it is a very complicated, delicate dance, and doing that, figuring out that choreography is as important as like figuring out the choreography of actually being on stage.
Yeah, as you can imagine, these are just like props. That's how we treat them all backstage. I remember the last time we were in the Horror Fest, we did our blacklight show. We had a giant curtain. We realized we couldn't see anything. We had to organize 70 props and set pieces.
Tape specific cutouts, or like this puppet lays exactly like this one goes here.
And the choreography backstage was just as important as on stage, or everything just got trashed immediately. So just think about these as
And actually,
really delicate props.
to do shows like we do, if you've seen what we do, if you haven't, you now have to understand what this means. But if you've seen shows like what we do, or any show that has a lot of stuff, more or as important as the choreography on stage is the choreography on stage. You build it into rehearsals, you make it dedicated days, like you're building it to suit the space. You're talking about it from day one of rehearsals. It's part of the blocking. It's the only way. You don't have to do that with human actors and a ASM who's like running a prop around. But when everything's a prop, every character is a prop, you have to do that or it all falls apart.
Yeah. So we have some other examples here of articulated puppets. This hero here from one of our shows is fully articulated, just as some of the other puppets we've seen. But you'll notice it only takes 2 puppeteers to animate him. And so we've got Josh in that position we talked about on the head. Josh, in this instance, is also controlling the right arm. Okay, so head and right arm, similar to what we saw with the pumpkin head. Now, Christina is the second and final puppeteer, also on an arm or hand. And then, on the feet there. So, I don't know if you can give them a view of that potentially, but it's like a glove, essentially.
Oh, wow.
She's got her 2 fingers under there, right? So she can do, just do that. And that really speaks to something kind of important about all these puppets that we're going to see and play with today, is that the movement of the puppet, the way that, like, its personality, is derived from the puppet itself. And so, these are all purpose-built for various shows. We kind of knew what we wanted them to do, what kind of gestures they would be performing, but until the puppet is mostly complete and put together, you don't actually know fully what it looks like when it does move its little feet, right? Or when he looks around, like what kind of inherent personality he has, right? And so that begins to inform how we interact with the puppet and how the puppet interacts with the world of the play.
And I just want to jump in here.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about sightline and how important it is.
Yeah.
When you're on the puppet, you're going to be looking at it from behind, so you have to find these little, I don't know, cues that you have to go off of to see where the eye line is. For instance, on this guy, I always looked at the hat. As soon as I could see the bit of his eyes or the tip of his nose, I knew that he was looking where I wanted him to. So that's something to keep in mind.
You either find your markers on the puppet as they already exist, just like an actor would, like, oh, I know this floorboard is center stage, or what, we all have those little tricks. Or you can ask for one, but that also, just to jump in, a big part of the process is also there has to be a flexibility and a dialogue between the performer and whoever's making the puppet, because unless it's like, well, this designer built the puppet, shipped it, and they're done, you should have some like adapting to the needs of the show and the performer.
A good example of that is these rods on the hands here. That's the type of thing that might be tweaked slightly during rehearsal, because we might get the puppet initially and they're just straight rods, and what we find is the particular gestures that we want to do with him, straight rods aren't always going to facilitate the range of motion that we want, so that's where these specific bends come in. We might rebend them, change the angles, right? Just get it feeling right for the puppeteers to do the gestures that they need.
I was saying I can piggyback on that because when having a puppet like this, in order for Josh to get the right sight lines, I can't always be standing or I'm in the way of his puppeteering. So we did a lot of tweaking to figure out how I can stay below and how I can still move this arm and articulate it in a proper way while being so much lower on the puppet.
And that's just, again, like a big part of this from basically every aspect is accommodation. You're accommodating what the puppet can and can't do, but also the show and the process and everything. You need to accommodate the needs of the puppeteer. You're going to be contorted, and the puppeteer needs to accommodate. Well, sometimes you got to be in weird, uncomfortable positions, but we can give you knee pads or do things or change the puppet or fix something to mitigate that, right?
Yeah.
It's so collaborative, which I think is why we all love it so much.
So speaking of collaboration, we're talking about this is a two-person puppet, even though he's fully articulated, it only takes two folks to do it. That does free up, if we've got the same group of puppeteers. Now if we've got a puppet that takes two people, it actually frees us up for that third person or more to do other things to help support the world of play. So we, Rainey and I here both have just one-person puppets, and they're both kind of similar in design. She's got this farmer from the show we did. And
Jim.
Yeah, Farmer Jim. Both of ours operate very similarly, where we've got a thumb kind of shoved into this sleeve in the back, right, this foam sleeve. So that allows us to articulate the head, and then there's a tab, just a wire kind of sculpted tab there that we can hold on to like a handle, like that. And that gives us full control of the entire body, and then just a single articulated arm in my case. In Rainey's case, the hoe is the articulation point that both arms move along with. Right, but we can get a lot of interesting movement out of just this one-hand or one-person operated puppet.
And it does take away, these are mostly secondary characters.
Yes.
Because obviously the only way they can walk is like this. So it takes away some of the very specific articulation that you get with a 2 or a 3 person.
So in the case of Hero there in the show that he was the star of, this pirate here, the sailor, was also in that show. Sailor showed up for basically one scene or one sequence out of that show, right, and then went away. And the puppeteer who was performing in this role then was performing other roles for the rest of the show.
And sometimes, most of the time, you don't have enough bodies.
Yeah.
And our imaginations are bigger than the amount of limbs we have.
And I see Josh there has another example of a one-person puppet dragon that he made for our most recent show. Yeah, it's just got a handle on the body, right? An articulated neck.
And technically articulated limbs too, they,
Right.
just in the sense that you could have a secondary puppeteer jump in and we can then be doing,
Yep.
you know what I mean, like,
And then, crucially, that puppeteer could go away and do something else, but the puppet hasn't died, right? Like,
yes,
the
and
puppet is
that's
still
part
alive.
of actually the articulating here that Josh very cleverly, the way he built is that it kind of holds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't go ragdoll. You
Yeah.
never want ragdoll unless that is a very specific
Right.
thing you're trying to get.
And even then, like, very rarely, right? Like, even in instances where, like, puppets die, that does happen in shows, it's like they go unconscious, they fully collapse. Even those, we do, like, slow-mo style, full control, like, we have a right. Even if the end state is now we, like, step away from the puppet, we want to fall into it with control. So Josh, let's come back on Hero here, if you would, for us, and let's just walk through those kind of 3 steps that we did previously, just to show those again. So, yeah, we don't need our puppets for that. So again, we're going to start with breath and gaze, right? Just really kind of bringing the puppet to life from a standstill. And we keep talking about breath, and a question that you might have is like, okay, so I saw like a lot of breathing. Does that mean you're doing that through the whole performance? Absolutely. Right? But it is an important step to just like start to feel what life feels like in the puppet. Give it that breath, figure out that what the gaze is like, where its sight lines are, right? Yeah, little things, right? Like how do all the limbs move? What is just the posture of the puppet? It's like that. It's just in a resting state when it's alive. What does it look like? What does it feel like?
Breath is also very important for cues.
Yeah, absolutely. We might breathe as a cue to each other, as if we're working as a team. Like a big jump might start with Josh taking a big breath, right? And then a leap, right? So that is a way that puppeteers stay in sync. So yeah, moving the feet and getting it ambulatory, moving around the space would typically be kind of the second step. It's just, okay, now it's alive. How does it just move around a space? And they're figuring out things that that particular puppet might need to be. This show with Hero was like an adventure kind of a show, a fantasy adventure, a journey. So he did a lot of hiking, but also climbing. He did looking to the horizon, leaping across chasms. So these are all the types of, ambulation that they're practicing.
I'll say when I'm on a two-person, I spend a lot of time just stopping and going, okay, how do I walk?
Yeah, right. What does that look
Which
like?
arm's supposed to swing when I step with this foot?
Yeah. Let's move on to the next.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to put a pin though in that, so we find breath and gaze,
Yep.
and then we move it around the space, and then we start to look for like very specific like pieces of personality, right? Like a fun thing, like, oh, that's really cool, he does a really cute thing with his hand, or you can do this gesture, that starts to build the personality. So really those are kind of the 3 steps to bring it to life. Yeah.
And there was one, I'm just going to touch on one thing, because I'm going to narrate this guy, as we're getting him into place. It's kind of, I think, a trope about puppeteers, but we do, in fact, you see in one of our shows, wear all black.
Yeah.
To the point where we cover up our hair and full gloves and everything but our faces. And what we hear from audiences is that's really effective, which is why we continue the tradition, because we disappear entirely. Even though we're floating faces, nobody's watching us. And I think that's one of the coolest things about being a performer is I hear over and over again from the people that watch us that they don't really know that we're there anymore. And that's the biggest compliment, right? Because you just disappear entirely. So I just wanted to say that is in fact something we do. Oh yeah,
Sometimes our faces are.
Yeah, that's true. We have done that before.
So here is now. I'm also talking.
Okay.
So here is a puppet that is like I would say if Creech is the most complicated version of our articulated puppet, this is the least complicated version of an articulated puppet because technically all the articulation is implied or it's implied. And so the idea is that we still have all these multiple people, but it still is joints, right? It's all just like fixed points and then things that move between them, if that makes sense.
I would actually argue that it's maybe even more complicated than some of the other because you don't have those limitations that you get from holding something with attached limbs and joints. They had to spend a lot of time just figuring out what was exactly. So this is Guy Button from one of our shows called The Button. It was part of our Black Light series. And he relived the same scene in his life over and over and over again. And part of why he's constructed like this is because he ended up experiencing some very surreal moments as part of that living the same scene over and over again. Every time he hit the button, the world changed. He was in essentially another dimension. So sometimes everything was on the ceiling when he hit the button. Sometimes I did this thing where I would roll an umbrella and the scene was changing behind me, and when he reappeared, some crazy thing would be happening, and sometimes all of his limbs floated apart. So let's do that same demonstration. What's just breathing? How are we finding his sight line? How are we finding his neutral?
So you gotta find, so you're too high, right?
Mm-hmm.
We gotta find a comfortable place. You have to imagine the limb, right? So you don't hold your arms like this when you walk around. You sort of keep them at your waist. We gotta
Figuring
have.
out where his body needed to land was the key, right?
So then once you sort of lock into that, then it's, same
Because he could be
thing.
very tall. He could have almost no legs at all. So
Yeah.
it's a neutral.
Unlike other puppets where they're all conjoined together and there is like a sympathetic movement and you can kind of feel, and it's easier to move as a unit, this is, you're right, kind of hard mode. It's easy in terms of construction, hard in terms of performance, because you have to focus, laser focus. You can't ever stop or,
So then what is just walking around
Okay.
look like, which Christina could love?
yeah. So then you gotta pick someone who leads. So the head sort of leads in that you kind of pick a direction and go, and then it's like, but then it's a dialogue.
I'll remind you, you never had a table. Why don't you come back up here?
Well, right, I was just using it for now so that,
Sure.
Yes.
I just mean Christina can't do anything.
well, I was meaning for, no, okay.
Yeah,
Well, so this is an example of,
This one's harder.
you gotta listen, and so that was an example of not listening. So when you're not, so I think we have to actually be on the floor if we're gonna be out here. Because you gotta also make a strong choice, I think, is either you gotta be like up or down. Because then anything you're doing with a puppet, you want it to look intentional, right? It's like all about control.
And to be clear, these are all choices that these three would have discussed,
Yes.
right? So what you're seeing is like a lot of, okay, but where do we want him to actually land?
Right.
So let's say he's
This is
on
the
floor.
collaboration.
Yeah, this is what you're seeing. So yeah, so if he's on the floor, okay, now we decided it's height again. Now he's breathing, he's moving in his neutral. Now, what does that walking look like now that we know what his height is? Yeah, there we go.
And so something you notice that we're all doing is our bodies are sort of like, that's an easy way. It's like, you don't have to, you should be engaging your whole body when you puppeteer.
Puppetry rehearsals are a really good workout.
People are like, oh, your arms must be really buff, or you must have really good arm strength. It's like, well, it's your whole core.
I feel like dance rehearsal, also in the sense that whenever possible, we rehearse in front of a full
Yeah.
mirror wall, because you can kind of see, especially with this puppet, because you don't have that feedback of the joints and the interconnectedness, you really do need to kind of have a view of like, what is that whole puppet doing and what are the other puppeteers doing in relation to me? So having that mirror wall over here was really helpful as we began to work with puppets like this one.
So then, the third one, right?
Yeah, adding a little bit of personality. Yeah. And Mark did a really great job of just giving him not words, but like sounds like he's doing right now. And that just instantaneously allowed everybody else to know what the movements were that they were adding to that. Nice.
And what you're seeing there also is the tail end of us three having done a show together with that and coming up with a lot of like fun bits and ways that he like breaks the fourth wall with his body and is like, oh, get back here, arm, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that one of the final scenes of that, the reliving that same scene over and over again was actually all of his limbs just floating all over stage and him kind of coming back together and then floating apart and trying to grab things. It was very surreal. Allowed them the space to really use that puppet the way it was designed.
Anyone have any questions before we break out into groups?
I'm curious if, like, in your process, you have separate time where you are dedicated to developing your sense of ensemble that is separate from your time puppeteering that then comes into your puppeteering practice, or if it is all from the beginning just the framework of your shared focus on the puppet.
Well, I would say that it depends on the show in terms of it depends on the cast. Like, I think if it was us, we That's a second language. Some of us have been working together for almost 10 years. Over 10 years. Time. And well, we all are. I'm getting younger. But for some shows, we have like a lot of new people, or even just one new person. You want to be more integrated. But I think it's more like it's just folded into every rehearsal, especially in the early parts. I don't know if we set aside a ton of
We do a puppetry boot camp usually.
Yeah, last show, we had some new puppeteers who had never done puppetry before, and so we had one day that was just puppetry boot camp. You come in and you get to play with all the puppets, whether it was a puppet you used or not. And we even welcomed some of our members as well who were not on
Our
puppets.
human actors?
Yeah, and they could come in and they could also play with the puppets as well. That way, they didn't miss out on the experience, and they have some knowledge to take to a future
And
show.
actually, I'll say it sort of is what you're saying in that even though it's called Puppet Boot Camp, we're using puppetry as a tool to do team building, collaborative, because it's usually not specific to blocking. It's not even necessarily specific to the puppets in the show. It's just like, how do we all move on puppets together? How do we all work together as a team? It just makes it kind of takes the pressure off it feeling like corporate team building.
With that said, we do try to go out as the cast and stuff and bond outside, but that's always
There's usually a warm-up every rehearsal.
Mandatory
but-
friendship.
Yeah, warm-ups before rehearsal, and also like we typically will have like a centering ritual before every show, like before performances too, where we'll just circle up, maybe do a brief warm-up there, and we usually like pick a different thing that's going to be our thing for that show that kind of puts us all on the same page. So yeah, because the collaboration aspect is just cannot be overstated.
Yep.
We do a body check-in too at the beginning. Not only do we check in and do like a little group activity, but sometimes it's like, hey, since we do a lot of physical work, somebody might be like, my back's a little off today. And so when your puppeteering partner knows that, you can still work together with those limitations on those rough days, and it still makes the puppet look alive.
And like I'll cap it off with Vibe Attracts Tribe, right? So I think we have the fortune of we just unabashedly do the stuff that we think is really cool and don't worry about what other people are going to think about it too much. We try. And it just attracts the people we want to work with generally. Right? So I think that's what everyone should do as artists, I think, is do the stuff you think is cool, and the people who also think it's cool will flock to you.
Questions?
Do y'all have formal director, actor, designer, writer breakdown? Do you merge roles? How do you?
It depends on the show. But yeah, it is interesting, like, writing the line between, like, we want to be, like, collaborative is a big part of our company, but also getting stuff done.
Lines
Like,
of communication.
So, like, with every show, we try out new methods and stuff, but there is, a person that makes final decisions when there's no consensus.
And the
We
roles do bounce around. So if somebody has like an idea for a script that they're really passionate about, they want to write, they'll take on that writing responsibility, and maybe somebody else will direct.
We've also done scripts that are collaborative, where we like everybody kind of took a piece and we just worked together as a big group to write it. Directorship might also be fluid even within the show, where it's like this scene, because I'm not, because sometimes, we're a small company, often, at least at our core, so sometimes the director might even be in the scene at some point, in a scene, so we might kind of switch, like, okay, like Talia, you're not really particularly heavily used in this scene, so why don't you step out and really serve the role of director for this particular scene, because you can be out and have that more outside eye.
Yeah.
And that might switch off even within the show.
Yeah, and sort of long story short, we use hierarchy only as far as it's useful to us in the process, and that's it. It's not about ego. We try really hard to focus on doing this without ego, and I think a big part of the kind of the theater we choose to do, I think, shows that's how important that is to us, because you don't even know who's doing what half the time when you're coming to see our shows.
Per show to show, though, we are pretty specific. And
Yes,
scene to
yes,
scene, as
it's
Aaron
not.
describes, before the show begins, before rehearsals begin, we definitely are for example, as a core member, I'm one of the music directors. So if I'm doing music for a show, that's usually what I'm doing for a show.
Yeah.
I'm not performing in it, or costuming, or writing, or whatever. That's a known quotient before.
People sort of find their chosen wheelhouses,
Yeah.
their strengths, and we play with those. We have lots of multidisciplinary people. We don't peg people in this is your box. We ask people, where are you going to have the most fun and feel the most involved?
Any last question
one more
before we
question.
get on these things? You don't have to have one, okay, cool.
All right.
So I'm looking around, I'm thinking if we do 5 weeks, and one of those groups actually does hero, the 2-person, then we're pretty neatly sorted.
Great.
Great.
So we're each gonna grab
So I'm
a
gonna take
puppet
this
first.
Yeah. So, and we thought maybe we just let people self-select rather than like do assign you. So it's kind of where your interest
Well, actually,
lies.
you know what? Lorenz can be a 3-person if people want to.
Great.
Because he's got, like I said, he's
So our options here are going to be, we're going to use Pumpkinhead, we're going to use the hero, this is the 2-person one. Tiger. Here's the 3-person.
It doesn't have a name, it's just
Great. We're going to use Lorenz for this?
Yeah.
Yeah? That's 1, 2,
We'll use
3,
him as
4,
and
we
so
have
it's sort of like,
5 slots.
right, I think it's like, they're not all going to get chosen, but I think,
You just want them out.
I feel like they should go out, and I feel like we should maybe gravitate to them.
Great. So
And we'll just sort of let people vibe out and find, just select, self-select yourself into
These are
groups
both
of 3.
3-person,
Yes.
production style.
from our show Rising the Shadow. So is anybody particularly feeling drawn to Pumpkinhead here? This is a 3-person guy, very like standard, articulated.
Okay.
Yeah, please do come up then. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Come on up.
And also, don't feel bad for any of the puppets, they've all had their time to decide.
Yeah.
This is not a popularity contest.
They're feeling today, so don't
Don't matter.
stress it.
Anyone particularly drawn to the button?
Nice to meet you.
That's a-
Hard.
It's a man's love.
That's fine.
Also, you can switch. You don't have to stay with the same one. These are 2 that we didn't show you, but they're both 3-person operated. This is Nidria.
Yep, do you want to trade Arima and Art? Just try these out. And then this is, just like those 2, these 3 are all like classic Moon Raccoon. She's just a little bigger. This is Scout. She's from one of the Black Flag shows.
Who wants to go to space?
All right.
The third
There you go.
The third astronaut. All right. You don't need any qualifications to go to space.
All right,
We have someone who will.
each of us.
Nidria, you want Nidria? All right, and a couple more for Nidria? For sure. All right, so.
And then we've got Lance or Tiger, either one. And then, oh wait, hold on.
Can we get,
Do we missing? We need. Hold on.
Because that way,
Oh, 2 more people here. And I guess it can be.
let's do this one. Mark is technically a 1-person, we need 2 for the.
That one is.
Because you can choose to do the arms and
The
flags.
backlights are optional.
They can't, you just kind of bounce them around. And you can bounce back and forth if you want to try to. So, here you They're literally, when I did it, I just kind of grabbed the joint. Yep, and then, so, first just stand, so maybe bring it up just a little bit so that her knees are cement, yep. Perfect. And now, we'll do those 3 steps that we talked about. Breathing, just making sure that she's always kind of alive, whether that means kind of looking around or just, yes, all breathe together. And then noticing where the line of sight is. Sure. Sure.
Hands
We do the same thing.
Thumbs are on the inside, right?
Yeah, so, yeah, it's a good, so it's sort of like kind of their
There you go, yeah.
video game. Wow, they've got the T-pose, and then they've got their like whatever. So you sort of like, I always think of it like find their T-pose, right? And you sort of like, and then I find that that's usually then easier to identify as an art.
So this
Easy to Yeah, and you know, the nice thing about this is it actually does allow that doesn't really add I think it's more about just making sure that all you have to do is just follow this. It's like, does that make this a half this is like yeah, I think that's
Josh is like we can see the tops of the eyes.
Human created set or something that was set down.
So I think, you know, it also is for every person. So hard. We're basically doing this. That's something that's like, no matter who you are, one of those things, especially if there's
from your perspective, Mike, does it look like the feet are too far behind? Or is it
I will say,
because I
our is doing a little bit of a
lean.
lean.
Did it look like that from the audience? Or?
No, not
Okay,
really. So
okay.
actually, this is a great example of this is not how we do this. This is from
Yeah.
we had him with our personality for him was more pigeon-toed, like you know, and so it was more like feet pointed forward and kind of like but I think that again is like performer is in the bucket hips forward.
Oh, you're right, because it's my wrist.
It's much easier to just push forward. And it's one of those things where it's like once it's just it's not intuitive. None of it is. It's all. I mean, this one's good. It's a lot of good examples.
Jump ball?
Yeah. The big thing about jumping is we're using breath in order to get into position and then it's sort of like, so that's like, we're beginning to jump, right? And then slow-mo it, right? We break it down into moves. So it's like, sorry, here it is. Basically, and then usually that's one leg.
Like kind of leads.
And then land is usually boom, you're down. It's like land, right? So it's kind of like everything is programmable. So why don't we just try that? You just talk out loud to each other what you're doing as you're doing.
Alright, so gonna jump. We're nervous about it. Excited.
Oh yeah, I think, how about we're nervous at first, and then
Are we going jump jumping straight down to get down, or you're like jumping high to get
Why don't you walk the edge, here down, back up, run, jump, as far as you feel. Just find your distance in the air, but just do a run, jump, and then when you land, just land on your feet. That was great. Yeah, so then down and then keep going, following. So for him, so again, you're learning a new limitation. Oh, my fingers can only bend a certain way. He can't really do this, right? So the way we changed that was we did this.
Oh, just over.
You know what I mean? So then when he lands, you go, oof. So if you feel your head up. Yeah, it's sort of, and you can just like, he's a wobble back up. Why don't you try that one more time with the run and jump? And then try to follow through. And for this, I think because you have that hold, I think maybe to help you. For future guys, is that when you land, maybe you do like
A couple more steps, yeah.
like maybe this is a so
landing.
yeah, so maybe it's like you land like step, and then you just like feel skid, and then you go like skid, right? Yep. So
To make that.
Yep,
It's
exactly.
not just like a land like this.
It's a like landing here and then just
step, one move, skid.
yeah, repercussion.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like usually when you do kind of a landing like that, unless you're landing in a power hold,
Yeah, so those are training up down.
then you are kind of like.
Energy is definitely transferring diagonally.
Right, and then that's the thing, you have to like, you have to create the physics, because it's all fake. It is very, I mean, it's live action. I look at it from the.
We'll just kind of think about it. So, you lead the walking, just a step at a time. And I will see what I think right now.
Nice. Oh, nice. Wow. Great job, guys. That was fantastic. That looked really good. That looked perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then the one thing I would say is like,
That's one of those like
so, and you know, it's also a thing where if you were actually just learning on this topic, you would
yeah, you did it. I was gonna say, pay attention where that.
I just gave you straight highs.
To make sure that you have an actual.
I never would have thought that, but great.
Yeah, there's something weird about this rod that felt unnatural, but now I know why they have it.
Right.
This feels really great.
So
Getting like.
So, yeah, I mean, and I think it depends on, what they're saying. But it always has to because you want the audience looking for just talking.
Right.
And it's like,
Do you want to
always
go
gotta have, it's not a head movement, or some big body movement.
For the most part, except for the feet.
But the head does move like something, but it doesn't even bother. It doesn't you can think of it more like, imagine there's a so if you look like this, blah, 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 great sound is very simple digestion. You can still make that.
Yeah, it's a little bit
Just so you can see, like blocking two of the more like this becomes really challenge. It wasn't like a lot of mistake. Oh, sure. It wasn't more about like, more about, yeah, I think
we're keeping the reality of him being a speaking character and not a silent character.
Oh, sure.
Doesn't expect a lot,
So speaking, not worrying about going up and down, side to side, remember to sort of you're right, just be still, and you don't always have to move your head. But certain motions or moments or times in the show, there would be like bigger movements of the head and turns.
Yeah, and I will say honestly, a great way to think about it is if a character speaks or doesn't, they should emote the same. It should be, they should feel like a mime or clown rather than emoting when they're speaking.
So the puppet actively listens.
Yes, and you do need to overfill just in the same way if you go slow-mo. Everything's just like, even when you're translating from everything's a little bit heightened because it needs to read.
That makes sense.
So actually, really, I think it's great to always think of it like a line characterization, even if you do that well, because then you're not relying on to tell the character's emotions and stuff. And they can't make facial expressions. Even if they're but having the so what are some like try giving some like emotion to thinking about like without worrying about what to the same so we think you see something there's a tiger over there and you're trying to look around for see the tiger curious yeah, that's good. I mean, I'm doing it as a great way to think about it. If I wasn't clear, if you didn't like directing, you just like stopping some stuff on your own or developing your own show that you're directing / performing in. You would set the puzzle down and you would both just be sort of like, break it down. How does that happen? How does he get on? How do we go to the position? How do we, it's little things like, for example, if you were to go, oh no, very rarely does he just back up, right? Oh no. Can we try to, there's like, always come to life and what? I was can we try to with the body? Right. And so, so what I'm saying is, you two guys, that's not like, you did it wrong. You were like, a fun puppet die for a moment, and maybe you guys are like, I'll let you two sort of guide what you want to do. You can direct yourself and then just the way is like it's basically the law.
And she's around tiger because it's.
And I think it's very much
Exactly, because you have to just let them.
I think yeah.
So that actually look like. Not just roll out. Let's say you're actually.
And I think it's certainly everything like, oh my god. Or even a hand, right? We get like a hand up, like, oh my god. My debate was how the torso. It would very much be like a.
How about this? Starting heroes and starting a little like this way. And then you turn.
Yeah. I like that.
So you turn this way.
Yeah.
So it's just like, yep. feet.
You don't need to stress about it too much.
It's very true.
Yeah. I think that's you. You guys
This is far up for ducking.
So the dragon is a little
Yeah, is
like
there-
the tiger.
The one thing I would add is I feel like there's a transition between stumble back and hiding behind the box, where I wonder if there's a different way you can get down that feels more natural.
Yeah, it's like, I wasn't actually expecting to run on the bus.
Yeah, no, but that's great. You found what sort of came next, but I feel like I think you can figure out an organic way to fall or stumble off. I think it's rewind a little bit.
Especially if it's a misstep.
Yeah.
Right? And it is that like gas, step. And it's like, whoa!
Yeah, oh, that's great. Just the straight on the butt looks really funny.
It's just a straight line. Instead of like falling all the way.
Yeah.
Because I think with this hand, if you go to the butt, I can also catch myself there.
Yeah. And then I think you can very easily push yourself back up on the side. Yeah, and grab that edge of the box. That's good. Yeah.
Both hands up here. So that he's got
So then
stability.
really think about that.
Maybe he comes down and
Because this is so simple, put as much effort as you can into that hand. Yep. And in terms of, if you go back to the first step in that process, like line of sight is the same thing here. You really got to focus on keeping your hand up here so he's not looking up all the time. And with him, it's kind of the opposite because it's, there's that. And also, when you get tired, your thumb's going to rest and it's also going to end up looking up. So it's really about focusing on where is that thumb, and where if there was a thought.
So you see how once you've been doing it for a
A
little
lot of
bit,
it is overcoming the awkwardness of like where that and what the reality of
you just sort of this is my responsibility on the body.
So you have to
Mine.
disassociate
You can
what
feel when it's wrong.
what
Even
they're
if you don't know the answer, you know. Let's fix it.
That was, to me, that part was like, how do we get lower? Not us. And then I was like, because I can't hear a guy.
I was looking for my.
Yeah, it's going to be working diagonal.
I think
again, those rules that are, you know what I mean?
oh yeah, nice cover of the head, right?
It seems to be
Ready?
Yeah, and I think especially if it was a moment, duck, something goes over their head, back up, that would be great. You kind of have to fudge some stuff a little bit.
Sure.
It's also a big thing. Unless you need to know where you're performing proscenium, three-quarters in the round.
Who's seeing what? And the blacks are up too.
Yeah, because it's plays very well.
I want to try something. If you can tell us how it looks. I'm gonna take the legs and kind of. So that I think with the cheating that might kind of look like people knee down.
Yeah.
Here's how it looks. So you ready? Sit down. And try to keep like cheek towards the audience. Right towards cheek.
Yeah, and I think you can go. Yeah, I think that actually does.
Does it read better?
It does read better because.
Turned away a little bit.
Yeah, because I will say what it does then is even if you aren't at the exact right angle, it makes it believable because the legs have equally. They're not off balance on the side. So even though obviously that is a crazy split to go, if an actor did that on stage, you'd be like, what is happening? They were just ducking from a frisbee and they did the splits. But But the puppet, you don't think about that because it's like, they don't really move like the audience
There you go.
That gets like.
And you don't want to go too far. So right now his left
And
arm
also,
is
I
much
think
longer
if you
than
do
his
something
right.
smoothly and intentionally, it forgives a lot. Even if it is kind of like, that didn't,
of this is
I don't totally buy the physics of that.
Like if you're in the middle,
That
my hand is like this, and the body.
it's really about like
One thing with
commitment
in rock and
and like just
you have to
smoothness.
be right.
So I guess like that leads to the kind of question like, you know, the smoothness and intentionality. Can
Sometimes you even have to listen to the other person.
or to an audience watching, the puppet kind of takes over.
Right, so like even if you're not depicting the character as being a superhero who can jump on top of buildings, you can make the character run and jump way too high. Because you're doing it at speed and the character is selling that it wasn't that speed, right? You can also make it not that big prop seem like it's more treacherous and dangerous by selling it to the puppet too. So like that's another thing. You can also like play up to make things seem way more difficult or dangerous or whatever. Because there are. So actually one of the things that harder about puppetry is you always have to look out of because you can't actually be out of control. Just like it's like the flailing when we were jumping the fence. I mean, just like stage combat or stunts on movies or whatever, like pop up. You gotta. There's like there's a way that it works where there's never a lack of control and people are always safety. I know we're trying to get I mean, a great example is the skin you guys did for the fall onto your butt. Those didn't look like you were gently setting the puppet down, but effectively it worked. You made it look like the puppet fell. And you can, it's a lot of stuff you can reverse engineer it, but it's stuff you'll just
It's sort of like when you're off balance.
Oh yeah.
So, I think they talked about like
because then what the audience is seeing is an actor on control and they feel scared for the actor. Never, you want to feel scared for the character, but never the actor. They want to feel like we're in good hands here. This is not real. Alright, this is my flying left hand punch. And in the same way, the audience will, even if they're explicitly thinking this, oh no, don't break my head. That's maybe what they're, even though it's like, some people may humanize it and don't hurt the puppet. I love them. Some people are also just like, that's expensive or complicated or beautiful or whatever. So, but yeah. I mean, and you know, if you're doing this job, the audience is not thinking about you or the puppet as puppet at all. Which happens pretty It walked around. It did. It was 3 people. Oh, okay. But it can be 2. If it was 2,
Do you want to try to switch?
Yeah, we can switch.
Because that's what I would say, because I feel like
The other person is back.
we're swapping around in the back. Just sort of like a third. Let that happen. Or a third person comes in here. Yeah.
So it's that
Yeah.
Do you want to do this? That I was like, Mark, would you like to be
Maybe 5 minutes.
And then we decided to now switch. So now we're starting from ground zero again.
And then one person is full fat.
So like this leg.
I feel like it feels natural.
Yeah.
Here, and my fingers like this. And I'm gonna put my feet.
Also, there's a dragon operating
That the hard thing is actually really really tough. It's just like hard on a stick that I put behind his body, you know, and like just pulled out.
And then at that point, you feel like you've all verified that your heart comes out, you see it's down to the back,
And then if I remember it, his wife, just like,
Because he does it to like bring her back to life.
things he did, and he sacrificed
John, you want to try hero? Hero? Yeah. Would you like to be arms and legs? Yeah. Fingers or like this way?
Your ducks in a row.
I'll try that.
I know we,
Do you want to try this?
you can decide either or, it does switch, so whoever wants to be the feet has to be one of the arms. And whoever wants to be the head has to be the Yeah, I was explaining to the other guys that when Josh and I used this moment for service, we weren't sure if I needed to be right-handed with the feet or left-handed with the feet. So we practiced and we went to see like how our facing comes to right-handed to mix it up in time.
Just in terms of, not just like, oh, I understand. Say right now, but the feet are very close to the
Yeah, we noticed on this guy because he doesn't have a shot.
But like this right here, they're like, I know. Yeah, if you're like, I have a shot. Oh no. All the way to the side.
Yeah, there you go, there you go.
You want to do the body now?
There you go.
And then he would walk up and interact here, and then same thing as he's walking around, except he's just walking. So we had lots of fun with him, like jumping, dangling. Make one arm go up, and then make the other arm go, and then lift it up. And he would basically sacrifice his heart out of his body, and just the heart came out. You can see he was still floating a little bit lifeless. And then slowly.
So much harder it is when there's no like reconnecting. Yeah.
And he did that all to say, you know, let that leave that go free.
Yeah, there's no. So let's, stand on the table.
So if we,
Just do some.
That would have been
There's another one back here, we can go to this table. Why don't we, so the tables up? We do that. Great.
start here.
Yeah. Once you do it in this. It's very odd. I never outlined it.
So we'll go like up at the same time. Like a gallop, right? Like a boom, boom.
I immediately thought it was horrible. I think I was like, they're terrible. I think like all the different shows.
Bouncing energy, back legs, right? So like bouncing, crying, and then
Go. It's like a, oh. And then we fall reflective.
All right, we're beginning to wrap up. Just a little bit more kind of Q&A discussion here for the last couple of minutes. If folks want to come back.
you want to try to sing this right ball.
That is the complicated part with
Nice.
Really got into it.
Long day.
So yeah, we've got about 10 minutes left of our workshop time here, and we thought maybe we'd just make a little space for further questions, observations, just like how did that feel, what did you notice?
And we only have a few minutes, so like, just like quick thoughts.
Yeah, if you could review really fast, like the top of when you come into your puppet, breathe first,
absolutely.
those steps. And
So we kind of break it down into 3 steps. One is, the breath and gaze, right? 2 is then moving it, right? Just
Focus is another word for breath.
Yeah, exactly. Focus is a great way to describe that. And then how does it move through space is the second step. And then the third is personality, right? All those fun little quirks that it does, specific ways that it likes to move and doesn't like to move.
FMP.
Yeah.
Focus, movement, personality. Yeah.
And work the gaze in there somewhere.
That's
Focus, yeah.
Traditionally, do you have the idea for the play first and
Yeah.
then start developing the puppets, or do the puppets come first and then you're like, ooh, this is the story that I'm seeing emerge with these puppets?
It's almost always the idea informs the puppet, I will say, but I do think that sometimes I have an idea for what would be a cool kind of puppet, and then we develop a show to make an excuse to build it, but I wish I did have the time to just build puppets and then see what happens, but I don't. I mean, I'm not the only one building puppets, but I'm building most of them, and Talia and I are usually the ones deciding what shows we
Do you guys recycle puppets, like just change their outfits and paint them and then they're different?
A bit, yeah. Probably not as much as we maybe would like, but like we've also, so this guy, the hero, was part of a trio of shows, a triptych. He was just one of 3 pieces. He was in the same piece as Guy Buttons there. And then we brought him back and his show back for the Horror Fest, and we expanded on it. So we took sort of the core that was there. It was like a 20-minute, half an hour piece-ish, somewhere in there. And we expanded it into a full horror show piece. So we brought shows back in that sense. Haven't done too much of like bringing full characters into other shows. A lot of times because, the specific aesthetic is really, somebody was saying it would be fun to do a show with like all these puppets, like, which is great because they all have very distinct aesthetics. They look very different from one another.
So they've got a hodgepodge, but if that's the goal.
That's the point.
We've talked about like one day we should do a recycled show where it's like all stuff, because we
Or-
are really bad at getting rid of stuff. We keep everything anyways. So.
No, we're really good about archiving. There's a difference. Because we get rid of the stuff that's junk. But I will say, one thing is that we can always use the puppets for stuff like this. And this is not small for us because we're trying to do more and more and more. We have a lot of teaching artists that are a part of our company, and we're trying to, we're still only in our 4th beginning our 4th season here, so, which seems like, wow, already 4, but also, you know, we're a new company, so we're hoping to do more like education outreach stuff, so it makes sense for us to hang on to a lot of this stuff, because then we have things that people can use, you know, and it illustrates, it's so much harder to talk about this stuff without puppets.
Yeah. Other than you guys and hopefully more things like this that you are doing, do you have suggestions for further training and practice?
Yeah.
If this is something we want to expand upon?
If you're looking to build puppets, I think it's just Puppet Guy on YouTube has really good tutorials. If you're looking for like more classes and stuff like that,
There's, that's something where it's like, I think you just have to,
keep an eye.
you have to
on
look,
this.
yeah, I think look on Springboard, look on Minnesota Playlist, find theaters that do this kind of stuff and just see what their website says.
Open
Eye still does a
A
lot.
lot of this stuff is sort of always in flux, like some theaters will offer it and then they're not doing it anymore, or they are doing it and we don't know about it yet, so, I don't know. But we're also trying I'm gonna be hopefully doing some, workshop stuff at Stage's Theater Company in hopefully near future, so, and that'll be maybe more youth oriented, but I don't know if it'll be exclusive. But anyway, so that, you know.
And I think you're seeing questioning looks on all of our faces, because I know Erin took some classes at the U, and the rest of us are very much self-taught and learned from each other. And there was another company before this one where we all kind of started together. That's how we coalesced as a group, and we learned a lot.
Laura Wilhelm was
Laura Wilhelm.
Puppet Mama.
We kind of learned from her and got our chops there, and then these guys formed this company, and that's how we landed here. So there's not a lot of formal training.
And I'm one of 80 members. I came in right at the beginning as an understudy for Bellerophon with Scout, our little astronaut. I had been watching these guys do other performances and absolutely adored their work, and they asked for an understudy one season, and I didn't think I'd have to perform, and I did opening night. Now they can't get rid of me, so, you know.
In a more practical way to answer your question, I think that also, you know, because a lot of us are self-taught, because it's a lot of other disciplines, if there are aspects of this that you want to get into, you can also think about like, well, take a sculpting class somewhere, or a painting class, or learn costume making, or, you know, I think there's a lot of these other disciplines that are integral to some of the other aspects that are maybe not strictly performing on a puppet. Also, movement, mime, clowning, all of that ties directly into this, because basically your body is the puppet.
Mm-hmm.
So even yoga, Tai Chi, things where you're learning focus, control, breathing support is like, and it's not just like that is the spine of puppetry. And so even though, of course, it'd be nice if there was a lot more just strictly puppet stuff, you can get a lot of really practical stuff, and that can help guide self-teaching.
And keep an eye out. We might be.
Yeah, we'll do stuff. Again, Open Eye.
Yes,
does
Sandbox
stuff.
Theater
Every year,
sometimes.
pretty much every year, Open Eye does their puppet lab, like a puppet festival. It's a great opportunity. I think it's usually in like the summer.
Bare Bones is their parade.
Bare Bones, does during Halloween, right? There's opportunities there to get involved. Events happening at Heart of the Beast.
And they do workshop stuff there. They actually have.
Yeah, it's out
That's
there.
actually. Yeah. So actually, I think Heart of the Beast would be a great place to start.
Yeah.
And they would actually, I think, have. I think they would have resources to point you in other directions. So.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we're coming up on Bare Bones season, so it's a good time to look better.
Honestly, Adventures in Cardboard too.
Yes.
Adventures in Cardboard, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
What? I wait for one more.
Yeah, we have time for one more, I think. If there is any other question or observation, something that you found.
What's the best, like, when you're blending puppetry with real actors on the stage, what do you find is the best way for that ensemble work to come together?
Have the puppets as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Begin rehearsals with a functional puppet, even if it's not fully there, even if it doesn't have a face or eyeballs or anything.
Keegan was sharing earlier, because he was our original Creech in Twin Cities Horror Fest a couple years ago. He has a photo on his phone of the building process of being in Creech before it looked like Creech. And so if you want to see like kind of a bare bones, that's what we were working with before it looked like that. Kind of gives you an idea of like, it doesn't need to look beautiful right away as long as it's articulated and you can do the things you want.
But I think a big part of it is that you're just finding, like we said, like every puppet is unique, every show is unique, where you're finding the exact tone that you're striking, and so it's sort of like finding that middle ground between how do we make it seem like the puppets and the human beings are occupying the same reality. And it's sort of like, well, the humans need to puppetify themselves a little bit, and the puppets need to make sure they're staying somewhat more grounded than normal.
And I think that boot camp that they were talking about earlier, where even the people who aren't necessarily puppeteering is really essential for that relationship between the puppeteers and the people who aren't puppeteering in a show, to create a sense of empathy, so that you know what the people who aren't supposed to be seen on stage are going through. And so you just have that in the back of your mind as one of the performers.
I'll tell you what though, I think it makes the performing for the puppeteers, the emoting, all that, way easier when you have a human being who is not going through those extra mental steps of applying all of this body language and facial expressions and stuff. So the human actor maybe has a little bit more work to do to understand the puppet and relate to them. But I think that the puppeteer gets a lot from that. So I think there's a big upside also to having human actors.
And for all these reasons, I mean, as you can probably understand, it's crucial that to rehearse together. You know,
Yes.
like, even if it's a show, it's like, this show has dance and puppetry. You can't really do it, or like, this is a dance rehearsal and this is a puppetry rehearsal. You have to really approach it.
I mean,
as
and
like,
you'll have those, but you
yeah,
don't want to segregate.
especially early on, like maybe the puppeteers will initially meet just to do some of that intro work that we did today, steps 1, 2, 3, figure that out. But once they've got a handle on it, you really want to be rehearsing together because it's about the interplay.
And I think that process-wise, the biggest takeaway, I think that is like a big tenet for us that I think would help anyone do the kind of stuff we do, is, you know, just, I lost my train of thought.
That's a perfect ending.
So the most important thing you need to know is,
Just sum it up then. I made eye contact with a puppet.
I will conclude with, on your way out, if you want to find out about
Yes.
workshops we're working on, you can put your email down, and also shows business card. Give them a page. You know, these are all our things. But yeah, thanks.
I remembered what I was
for
going to
coming.
say. Building a foundation, building a common language, building a just like a rapport as a collaborative group is going to be this is going to be the first step, and it's the most important step of every show when you're working on stuff like this. So when in doubt, go back to them.
Boom. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.